Good evening and welcome to the weekly Cavan GAA broadcast on Player Pathways, brought to you by Cavan GAA. I'm Declan Woods. This series of broadcasts started off 5 weeks ago with the emphasis on looking at the pathways available for our GAA players locally here in Cavan. And tonight we conclude this series by talking to some major local employers about the opportunities they have to offer. I'm delighted to say that this evening with me we have Dara Riley, Chief Financial Officer of Mannock, Martin Riley, Commercial Manager at Kite PowerTech, Frankie Lovett from Lawrence Mechanical Services, and Damien Riley of Breffney Electrical. Gentlemen, you're all very welcome. So gentlemen, I think before we focus on the topic of this evening's broadcast, we should ask you to tell us something about your company and yourselves. So I'd like to start with Frankie. So Frankie, if you could start off for me. I understand that Lawrence Mechanical was founded in 1992, offering a full range of services, mechanical services. And I'd like you to tell me a little bit about the company so that everybody knows what you do.
Well, firstly, Declan, thanks for the invitation to come on here this evening and speak about this. I think it's very important that this pathway, and it has been a good success so far in all the pathways that have been done. Just on our own company here, Lawrence Mechanical Services, we were founded in 1992. We're 29 years obviously on the go at the moment. We concentrate on large industrial, commercial plumbing and heating. So you're looking into factories, hotels, anything in the larger side of the process. We kind of have nearly a repeat customer base of our own, is because we concentrate highly on quality, health and safety. And that means we get a repetitive sort of a client base that we have, but we're always on the hunt for new work. We've continued on from 1992 right through the recession of 2008, thank God, and up right through the COVID. We've been busy because we do a lot of work for OPWs, we do a lot of maintenance, we do a lot of essential services work. So the company is continuing to work and hopefully going from strength to strength the whole time.
Frankie, obviously with almost 3 decades behind the company, you're doing something right and doing a lot of things very correctly. Expansion-wise, where do you spend most of your time? Where is most of your work concentrated on and focusing on?
Well, based in Cavan, listen, we're based in Cavan, and we really work within what is in a travelling distance, basically, an achievable travelling distance for our employees, because we try to employ a lot of local men if we have. Listen, we employ in Dublin and we employ in the UK, but we try to, listen, wherever it's feasible we can go, and we work in all them areas, but like, in fairness to in the Cavan and surrounding areas, there is a lot of industrial work. There's a lot of factories and a lot of big buildings and all going on. So there is an appetite to work there all the time,
Excellent. Martin, moving on to you next. Kite is a sort of a new name to us all in Cavan, but of course we're all very familiar with CG Global, which was formerly Powell's factory on the Dublin Road there. I'd like you to tell us something about Kite. From looking at the website there, we can see that it's one of the top 10 transformer manufacturers in the world. So obviously a global player. So just tell us a little bit about that and the fact that such an operation is based in Cavan.
Yeah, thanks, Declan. Yeah, as you said, Declan, we're formerly CG and Powell's, and the factory was first established in 1977 in Cavan, being it was Powell's first factory expansion outside of its main Belgium hub. And has grown from strength to strength over the years, and was, as you said, procured by CG. And then only recently we've gone through the recent purchase of an MBO with an Irish equity company. So we're now first time ever a fully Irish owned company. So which is a big thing for us, and it's a big thing for Cavan, because it shows everybody in Cavan how much we think of the place and how much of a future we see there for a company of our size. On the site at the moment, we have over 430 people employed in Cavan, and that's just on the site, and that doesn't even count the amount of people employed with other local suppliers that we buy from, the likes of PQE in Coothill there, and even Charlie Green in Cavan Town, Charlie Green Joinery and Killygowan Pallet Supply. So there's a wide range of supplies around it, having paid, so a huge employer. And we'd probably contribute around 35 to 40 million a year to the Irish economy between wages, taxes and local purchasing. So a big employer and significant influence on Cavan. Like, where we're at, I know I did it myself for years. I drove past the factory when it was Powell's, and I never knew what they did until I joined just over 20 years ago. And we, as you said, we manufacture transformers, but it seems very simple to say that, but where transformers are used is in power everywhere. You can't use electricity safely without transformers. So, in we manufacture a lot for renewables, solar, wind, battery storage, utilities. The little pots on the poles outside people's houses are generally our transformers. We've a key supplier to utilities in Ireland and the UK, and as I said, we're growing into tidal, offshore wind, and in that kind of stuff as well. So, and we supply to markets all across Europe, and even we did a solar project in Mexico, supplied through a customer in Spain. So our products are all over the world. So, that's us.
Excellent, and obviously there must be a very strong research and development to have been able to pivot to the new, as you say, new tidal waves and modern energy sources and things like that as well.
Very strong R&D team in our factory, yeah.
Yeah, excellent, Martin. Dara, I'd like to come to you next. Obviously, Manock is the new brand identity for Quinn Building Products and Quinn Packaging brands. Tell us a little bit about the range of activities at Manock and, of course, the rebranding process and things like that as well, please.
Yeah, thanks, Declan. I suppose the business has its origins back in the early 1970s, founded by Sean Quinn. Manock is a new brand for us. It covers the operations that we manage now, which are the building products and packaging business that would have been previously part of what people would know as the Quinn Group. And I suppose the purpose of the rebrand and the rationale for it is that we see further development in the group over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And it's a brand that we believe suits the development prospects that we see for it. It's also something, I suppose, that is widely accepted across both the UK and Irish markets, which are the main markets for our products. The products that we manufacture come into two streams, if you want to call it that. The building products, which probably people would be more familiar with in this region. So that's the likes of your cement product, which people would be familiar with seeing cement bags and merchants. But in addition to that, we manufacture a significant amount of bulk cement product, as we call it, which you'd associate with the tanker trucks going up and down the road. And that's the majority of the cement product that we manufacture. In addition to that, we make a range of other heavy side building products, so precast concrete, roof tiles, aircrete blocks, dense concrete blocks, normal concrete blocks, sand, gravel, aggregates, ready mix, the whole gambit of building products and that side of things. And in addition to that, we also have an insulation division which manufactures PIR insulation and also EPS insulation. People are probably more familiar with calling that aeroboard. And that's used in the construction of houses, commercial buildings, and roofing applications, walls, floors, that kind of thing, to increase the thermal efficiency of a building. And then on the other side of the equation, we have the plastic packaging business, and it makes now at this stage a whole range of products for the food sector. So there's things like meat trays, mushroom punnets, poultry trays, and dairy spread containers as well. Overall, I suppose the business in the Cavan, Fermanagh area employs in the region of 830 employees now. When we took over the management and operation of the business back at the end of 2014, we had 650. So we've increased that by 180 over the last 6 odd years, with some additional investment into the business as well. And as I say, the new brand now is part of, I suppose, our view of the next development phase for the business into the next 10, 15 years.
That's excellent, Tara. And of course, what's probably even more enlightening to people is that it's not just building related products, etc. The fact that you're in food services with the packaging area and things like that, which is good to hear as well. Damien, to come to you now, obviously, I'm aware that Breffni Electrical could only be based in Belturbet, where you're very proud to be from, and you founded it just as we were coming out of a recession in 2013. So tell us a little bit more about your company.
Yeah, thanks, Declan. So, yeah, I suppose as we are, what it says on the tin, we're Breffni Electrical, and we're definitely Cavan based. And I think when ever Breffni Electrical land the site, it's obvious we're Cavan based, and we're definitely proud to be from Cavan. So, as you said, definitely we started in 2013, when was probably renowned for being, tighter times, but it was a great time to start a business, I felt. So it started off, we still are a relatively young company, but we started off with only one employee, myself and one apprentice, and we've grown it from there. We have a good team of guys with us now, that'll be including admin and pricing department, and a lot like Frankie there, we're doing large scale commercial and industrial fit outs, but we would have started doing, once off residential house, where you'd be dealing with a client who is building their own home. So we would have dealt with them directly, trying to tailor their needs. We've gone from, we still do once-off developments locally. Now we're doing multi-unit developments, from small housing estates to large 100+ housing developments, which is great. You're dealing with developers. It's very different. You start off with one house in a multi-unit development, you continue them right through. They're all very similar. Your once-off house, you have a lot more liaison with the client, with builders, etc., and ever-changing needs and decisions. So that's an area that we're in. We're also in, as I mentioned, commercial fit outs, retrofit outs. We do a lot of industrial work. We do food automation, plants, installs, a lot of industrial maintenance. The maintenance division is a huge part that I like to keep a focus on, because everyone's very busy at the minute, and it's great doing installs, but I like to keep a maintenance going on the side, and it's future proof, I feel. So we're keeping a good leg in on that there. We've done schools, healthcare facilities, and from starting off to been primarily in Cavan, we obviously hit Dublin every day. We're very privileged in Cavan here. We're on the commuter belt. We've great infrastructure from here to Dublin, and we can hit Dublin every day with ease. We've been down to Cork, Donegal, Galway, and last year we completed 2 projects in the UK, and hopefully this year we potentially have jobs coming up in the UK. If COVID allows us, we will be on them as well. So look, we're still a young company in comparison to the guys here that you've on, but it's a growing company, and as a growing company, every job is a ticket to our next job. So that's the way we feel. There's no middle ground. We go in and it's 100% right, and that's how we advertise. Is our last job.
I'm going to move on, guys, to talk about, I suppose, personal career pathways and how you got to where you are, as it were, at the moment, so that you can share some of your learnings. And I'm going to start, Martin, with you, if that's okay. And of course, I know that you actually sat your leaving certificate in St. Patrick's College here in Cavan, but you then chose to complete your degree through the Institute of Public Administration on a part-time basis. So just tell us a little bit about that and what prompted you to do it that way.
College wasn't my primary. I went straight into the workforce, and if I don't remember all the jobs that I was in. I know I was greenkeeping at one stage. I was in Kilsaran Concrete at another stage, in their building division and stuff like that. So I've been across many paths, but it's just, as I said, college wasn't for me at the time, and I decided to go out into the workforce, and I did, and then over a couple of years, mature. I would say I was probably maybe not mature enough to make that decision to know what I really wanted to do when I did my leaving cert. So I think even now, when you see that gap year the guys have now, a transition year, I don't know what TY they call it now, I think it's a much better process that it gives these people, but kids in secondary school, a bit more mature when they're making those career choices, which course they want in college and stuff like that, rather than what it was like when we were doing it. Well, how I got into doing my degree, and it was actually through Powell's at the time, or Cape Power Tech at the time. I had joined Powell's back in '99 as a factory operative. an operator in the factory working one of the winding machines, a low voltage winding machine, and an opportunity came up in desk sales, similar to something I had done with Kilsarn in Clonee. And I applied for it. I was about 6 months with Powell's at the time. And then when I took up that role, I could see very quickly that the people I was meeting with and discussing with had gone to college and had the degrees. So it was generally, if I'm being honest, it was probably a chip I had in my shoulder that I said, right, I felt maybe a wee bit, maybe I was, what's that one they heard to say, I shouldn't actually be here, that maybe I should. So I said, well, just to give me that self-confidence, I said, sure, I'll give it a go. And in fairness, the company, and we continue to do that, is if people want to take the opportunity to learn, to re-educate, to reskill, even in a completely different direction, the company will support them and wants to see the talent and the desire is there to do that. And that's really, it was the company that supported me in the it was a long 4 years because it was part-time on top of my job. Unfortunately, I did mine in Dundalk because Cavan College only started 2 years after I did. So you can now do the same courses in Cavan College, which I would have loved to have done, because that 2 hour and a half drive to Dundalk 2 nights a week wasn't very nice in the winter time, believe me. 4 years. And when I did my degree then, I found what I was doing at Declan, and I would say I would give this anyone that is afraid to go back maybe and do it. It's actually easier when you're doing it after working or during working, because you can apply it. It's real world scenarios that you're dealing with. You're not like I found other people, particularly in the IPA, was public sector people, and they hadn't lived the real world. They went straight from school to college straight into the public sector, so they didn't have to know what it was like didn't know what a balance sheet was or a profit and loss account. They didn't have to worry about that because they didn't worry about the funding part of it. But I was living it every day, so I could apply what I learned in work, and I could apply what I did in work into my studies, and I actually did quite well. I finished one of the top in my class in that year. So after the 4 years, so it was. I know you can say maybe I should have done it earlier. If I had been more mature, probably would have. But in hindsight, I found it much easier, and when I was doing it, and then even from that, like I went after that few years out, I decided. Went nuts again and decided to do a 3.5 year MBA. So so my wife didn't thank me for the second one. She lived with me for the first one, but the second one was a big. But again, the MBA, it sounds a huge thing, and it is a huge thing when you do it and you achieve it. It's a big thing. But when you're doing it again, it was the same thing. I was just applying what I was doing every day in my job, reading it in a book and just saying, yeah, this is exactly how I do it, or maybe I should think about it. And it did open my mind up at different ways of thinking. Like, as I said, when you're young and you're stubborn and you think you know everything, it does open up your mind and listen to other people, So that was my career, my study path. So it was all my studying was done in work, through work, and supported by the business.
I think it's a wonderful story because, of course, it shows that, and I think this has been something that Player Pathways has been trying to show to people throughout this whole process, that the path to your final goal is not necessarily the straightforward path of achieving leaving cert.
I can concur with that, Declan. Absolutely, yeah. And I've seen it even in people who have come into our company and they wanted to go a certain path, and then they found like. There was a lady in particular. She wanted to go into lean manufacturing and stuff like that, and then she found more in the health and safety end where she was stronger and stuff like that. And then vice versa, people have moved around and once they show the desire and I said the intent, the will to want to do something like that, we are more than happy to support people like that will do attitude,
Yeah, and to have somebody in a management role, in a senior management role, who has had that pathway, is clearly going to be a huge advantage to other people coming through because you've lived that in real time, as it were, and you know what it means. Okay, well done, excellent, Martin. Frankie, if I could turn to you, Tell us a little bit about obviously, tell us about your role actually now at the moment in Lawrence Mechanical Services, and how you got to be where you are from your time in secondary school.
Thanks, Declan. Yeah, just similar enough kind of a scenario there than Martin's there. Now, I went to St. Pat's College as well. Enjoyed my time at school. Actually had made good friends. It was a great GAA school, so it was. And I'm still very friendly with most of the GAA boys from Mullahorn and over that kind of an area. I left St. Pat's. I'd done the leaving, passed the leaving at the time. I was on a road that I didn't know where I wanted to go or what I really wanted to do. Now, to be fairly honest, I was a homeboard. I didn't really I used to get nervous crossing the border there at Mahara when we'd be heading into Meath or anywhere like that. But I was always a Cavan man, a true Cavan man. So I took a course in Cavan College, a sales and marketing course in Cavan College, and I studied it. There was only maybe 12 of us in the class. I got on with it. I done it. But for me, I wasn't academic like that. I didn't want to be at college. I was more a grafter to get up in the morning at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock and walk right through till 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening if I had to. I didn't think the book was for me. I didn't think college was for me at the time. So I went in and I left and I joined Lawrence Mechanical in 1995. It was only after up and running 2 to 3 years. Brendan Cosgrove was the managing director at the time. And Brendan came in and he employed me as an air conditioning division in the company to see could I promote and push that. I got into the business, worked alongside himself and Fergal Maguire, and we worked continuously right up until 2014. Actually, it was just when the recession hit in 2008. We worked on through it. Now we kept on work with a lot of work, and 2014, Brendan Cosgrove had other ventures on his own, and me and Fergal Maguire done a management buyout of him. So from 2014, I'm a director of the company, like myself and Fergal Maguire are 2 joint directors. So my path has went from not being, if you want to say, wholly educated. I took a path, I worked extremely hard at it, and I got to where I am at the moment. So if go down the road of college and all that, by all means, yes. But I would always say to anybody, try something. Try something different if you need to try something. Like, you don't have to be a surgeon, you don't have to be a doctor. There's opportunities in every walk of life and every road you take where you can be successful at it, whether it be in a factory operative, in a plumber or electrician or anything like that down the line. There is important roles out there for everybody. And our company here, we're strong in that belief that if you come in at even an apprentice stage, you might have no qualification whatsoever. You go through your apprenticeship schemes or whatever it may be, or you can come in as some other part in the companies. Like, we employ engineers in the company here, BIM modelling engineers, quantity surveyors and all that. So there's opportunities in every company. But I would always say to everybody, choose the road you think is right. And if you go to the bottom of it and there's a roadblock, you don't believe that this isn't for me, turn and go back. There's loads of avenues. But the one thing I'd say about anybody, and especially in the GAA end of things or life end of things, try to enjoy what you do. That's the most important thing for me. That, like, if you go into work every morning and you don't like it, something wrong. Get up, enjoy your day's work, enjoy the people you work with, make new friends at work and everything. And that's my belief, and that's the role where I am today in the company. And hopefully we will keep proceeding till I go some other area if I feel I need to.
Yeah, well done. And look, as you've shown, it's hard work, and not having a fear of trying something to get to where you want to be, Frankie. And I think that's, again, part of the ethos of what we're trying to put across here to people. Dara, if I could come to you next, and I'd love you to tell me about, obviously, your career path, how you ended up working with Mannock and moving through the company to the position that you hold.
Yeah, I suppose mine's probably a little bit more of a traditional path than Martin or Frankie have outlined there. But needless to say, I suppose my background and my family background is we had a small distribution business back when I was a child. So more or less from when I was fit to walk, I was involved in that. And I suppose carried out various different roles within that during holidays and weekends and what have you when I was a youngster. And then obviously as soon as I got my driving license, I was basically given the keys of a van and told load that and go out and sell it. So I suppose it was probably inevitable that when I did my Leaving Cert and was thinking about my choices for further education, the business was going to come into it. And in particular, I suppose I had an interest in accountancy at that time. But in fairness, I was given some good advice, which was, look, don't narrow yourself. And a little bit like what Frankie's after saying there, don't narrow yourself to doing one thing. So take your time, maybe look at a broader degree or diploma or whatever it might be. So that's the route I went down. I did a business studies diploma in the first instance, and then moved on and did a degree. And then I actually got a job with Coopers and Lybrand, as it was at the time, or PwC as it is now, one of the larger accountancy firms in Dublin. And they funded me to do a master's for a year. And I progressed from that into actually doing my accountancy exams and qualified as an accountant with PwC. And then I moved on to Aer Lingus for a period of time. I worked with Aer Lingus for just over a year. But I was very much, somebody who wanted to move home and had a desire to move home to Cavan. I spent over 10 years in Dublin. But being honest, at the weekends, I couldn't wait to get out of it. And typically then on a Saturday morning, I was back, grabbed the keys of the truck or the van, and away I went again. And that was my weekend. And then I suppose an opportunity came up to get a job with Quinn's, as it was at the time. Got a job there as a financial controller for the hotel and property division. And I just progressed up through the company. I became group finance director a year after I started there, and then progressed on. And I suppose I am where I am today now as chief financial officer for the building products and the packaging division within there. But I think just back to the point that was made earlier there, when we were going to college or looking at our career paths, you didn't probably have the same options that you do now. There's a lot more variety in terms of how you can get from A to B now than there was then. And that's something I suppose that we try to bring out within our organization. So we have a lot of different courses where people can come in, as an apprentice, for example, and get their apprenticeship, move on, do a diploma and do a degree in certain disciplines if they wish to. And even if you look at our senior management team, there's a lot of people within that have grown up with the company, have come in either from college or in as an apprentice in that, and have moved up to become part of the senior management team or the divisional managers within the organization. So there's certainly a lot more avenues now for people to progress, which doesn't necessitate going down the full college route in the first instance. And people can probably get a little bit better feel for what they want to do. But yeah, I suppose back to the initial question, Declan, my route was probably more traditional than some. But at the same time, while I did accountancy and qualified as an accountant, and I'm in what people might perceive to be an accounting position as chief financial officer, being honest, the role is a hell of a lot more varied and wide-ranging than that. I'm just thinking about yesterday. I was trying to sort out a shipment of cement to the UK and worrying about low tides and the full moon's impact on low tides. So that's far from what you learn when you're doing accountancy.
Yeah, but of course, the important thing here is that, as you've touched on, yes, it may have been the more traditional route, but there will be people, there will be students, there will be people watching this who will go to traditional route, but it's to know that the opportunities are there and that the opportunities are there locally then when you do come through. And that's the important point. And that's very comforting, I think, for parents out there that might be watching in on this today. Thanks a million, Dara. I'm going to move to you, Damien, now. And of course, obviously, you're a qualified electrician, okay? But what I want to know is, how did you go down that route? And obviously from finishing your schooling, where did you complete your apprenticeships, etc.?
Yeah, so like that, I went to St. Pat's from 2001 till 2006. And during that period, I was very heavily involved in football. And, for a lot of the time, maybe the football came first and the education part came second. But that was it. And I found myself in my Leaving Cert year, and I like the boys there, I suppose, just wasn't sure where I was going or what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor or an accountant or a teacher. I knew, them direct paths that, some people are very focused from the minute they go into paths, maybe that they know I want to be a teacher and they're aiming for that the whole way and to fill out the CEO and that's what they're going down, the road they're going down, which is fine. But I found myself kind of looking at the CEO thinking, well, I could possibly do that course, I could do that course. And it was for the wrong reason. It was for the reason of going to college to tick a box, to move on to the next level, because it was the done thing. And I went to DIT in Bolton Street and I done 3 months doing engineering there. But like Frankie, I found myself, my heart wasn't in it. So from the summer of 2006, when I left St. Pat's, I started with a local contractor in Biltorbert doing just some work, electrical contractor, and I loved it. And it came to the time where I had to decide, was I going to stay on and do it, or was I going to go to college? So I said I'd give the college a try, but I came back and I'd done the apprenticeship in Biltorbert from 2006, and I stayed with that employer for 9 years until 2013, until I decided to set up on my own. So I felt that was I loved it, I enjoyed it. At the time, I was involved in 2 teams. You could say I was involved in the GAA. I was playing with Cavan that time, and I was also involved in my work team, which was two very separate teams. The company I worked with, what I'll say is it probably wasn't very football oriented. The lads in the company had no real interest in football, so it didn't matter how I played the weekend before. It was all about how I performed that week. We had a job to do. I had a job to do. I was only an apprentice. I was earning my stripes, and I wanted to learn my stripes. I was coming in entry level, so I wanted to put my best foot forward. So there was no crossover between football and on work for me at that stage. There was a bit of finding out I had to work harder because some jobs mightn't suit me to go to. I had to get to train and stuff. So it was a matter of putting my best foot forward when I was there, and I had to learn from the get-go and be part of that team as well. So as I say, I stayed with that employer for 9 years. And of course, during that period, like now, there's so many options. We're in a climate where it's very busy now. There's employers looking for people all the time. And like that, there was distractions during that period. 06, 07 were good years. There was a lot of employers looking for, apprentices. But I felt I was in a local company, Biltorbert or Cavan, and I'd advise that for anyone thinking of doing an apprenticeship, try and stay with a local contractor, because I felt my employer had my best interests at heart, wanted to train me to the best of my abilities. I wasn't just a number on site and clocking in. I felt I was getting a really good apprenticeship, and that's what was important to me. Money and stuff like that wasn't important to me at that time. I wanted to learn my trade as best I could, so that when the time did come in 2013, and I had that itch to go self-employed, well, I knew I had the ability. I knew I had learned my trade, and that's why I'd encourage anyone. If you find yourself in the current Leaving Cert curriculum and there is no direct path, you can't say I definitely want to be a teacher like that. Maybe just try a trade for a year. So in that year, you might decide, I love this. This is what I want to do. You might say, this isn't for me. I don't want to be working with my hands. I don't want to get up early. But you might also, as Frankie said, you might come into contact with a health and safety officer and say, I love that. Or you might have thought previously, I might like project management, but you could see maybe the pressures that then people are under day to day and say, that's not for me either. So I feel apprenticeship opens lots of doors. Mightn't be in the one you pick, but you'll be exposed to so many other trades and jobs, and you mature as well. And I can only speak from an electrical apprenticeship point of view. There's so many pathways after that. And I know so many guys there. Martin Riley there from Killigarry. He was within serving apprenticeship at the same time as me. He went on to electrical engineering. Tomas Corr, another Cavan player, he went to do sales representative in a field that was beneficial to be an electrician. He knew the technical background, so he had a path. I decided to go self-employed. There's various other paths from an electrical apprenticeship, but I felt the year matures. You had a couple of years, you can make a better decision. So that's the trajectory I took.
Thanks, Damien. And again, look, that's another outlook of how things have happened for you, and an outlook of the opportunities that were there, and I suppose the life experiences of discovering what works for you and what doesn't work. And I think the key point there, and we can lean on that from everybody, find what you're happy with, find what works with you, because it's a lifelong decision. The couple of years for college, and maybe being pigeonholed into doing a particular thing to satisfy other people, you will live with that going forward, as opposed to finding what you're happy with, and then that's your life plan laid out, and you're the one that's going to have to live it. So, Damien, thanks for sharing that. Guys, I'm going to move on to talk about, I suppose, the opportunities, okay, that are out there. And I suppose essentially, Martin, I'd like to start with you. And of course, GAA Pathways have been looking at the routes to careers. And last week, we featured the training options available locally. So I suppose to talk about training options, to throw it out there, do you need to have a degree to get a job in kite?
Oh, absolutely not. No. It's like I'm just so happy to hear the guys around me. We're all of the same way of thinking. That the opportunity is the one you take that's in front of you. If you don't like it, you can say, okay, that's not for me, and do the same. And it's exactly the same in kite powertech. Like the same as Dara will know, there's such, in a company of like us, we have everyone from a general operative that does cleans the floors to supply chain managers and everything in between, design engineers, R&D, health and safety. It's across the whole spectrum of the supply chain. So yes, of course, in certain circumstances, if we're looking for an electrical engineer, we would expect a degree in electrical engineering. But the same as what Damien said, like some of the guys have come in, they went into an electrical apprenticeship first, and then found their way into engineering. They got more once they had the confidence in what they understood, the basics. In an apprenticeship, then they were able to go on into the electrical engineering and then be able to apply that to the books. Similar to what I said earlier, as regards you could apply what you learned and see it in the books rather than seeing it in a book and it's scaring the living daylights out of you and saying, I don't understand this. So yeah, you don't have to have a degree, no. And we in same as what Frankie and Dara has also said, and Damien, like we love to see people coming in that have that can-do attitude and that approach, that that their will to work and will to put the shift in. And if they're willing, it's in them, that they want. They're like sponges, or like kids. They're like sponges. They'll learn from you, and they'll want to learn more, and they'll see. And they're smart. People are smart. They'll spot the opportunity and say, yeah, I like the look of that. I'd like to go down the health and safety route. I'd like to go down the apprentice route. Like we brought guys in for summer works a number of years ago. And then they said, oh, they like this in pneumatics. So they went into an apprenticeship, because we have a whole maintenance team out there of fitters and electricians as well. And we do have apprentice programs in that case. At the minute, we're looking at for graduate engineers, for looking at lean manufacturing because in manufacturing, you're always moving forward with technology. As technology moves, you're always moving forward. And then we're looking at the R&D. We're after putting in robotics there recently in our metal shop, or welding robots, and we're looking at expanding that even further. So the programming of those robots and making them fit for purpose, because we manufacture a diverse range of equipment so that they're able to do what we want them to do and get the best. So we're looking for graduate engineering in the robotics side of it as well. So these opportunities come up from time to time, and as you're growing, and now that we have, I say, made the jump, that we have did the MBO. We're looking to our strategy. We've been looking at our strategy for the next 3-5 years. We know where we want to grow. We know there will be opportunities for all people, all kinds of people. I would concur with Damien as regards the apprenticeship route and Frankie on getting the basic skills. I do believe there is a shortage of people going out of school that that don't feel they want to do the manual labor side of things, because like we see it with welders in particular, huge shortage of welders in this country, where they're harder to get than engineers. It's just there's loads of engineers coming out of college and stuff like that, but with no life experience. They have the diploma, they have the degree, they have the life experience, But then you haven't got the guys you need is the guys with life experience that, they can weld properly, they can do things like stuff like that. So I would, you don't have the degree, but I think the mantra that we've taken, if the person shows they have the can-do attitude, and the attitude is key for us. We believe we can train them in anyone, and if they want to do it, we will support them and train them in anything they want to do. So I don't know if that was a long-winded answer to your question, Declan.
I think it was an excellent answer and an excellent message, because it shows that the opportunities are there at all levels, and the right attitude and the want and the willingness to get on is the key point from Kite's perspective, and the support is there, and I suppose that's a follow on. It's a trend that has been coming through this particular edition this evening. Thank you, Martin. Dara, just in general terms, I suppose the skills and qualifications that you look for, okay, because there's obviously a huge variety of roles that will become available from time to time, given the mammoth amount of different enterprises that Mannock are involved in. So what are the typical skills and qualifications that you look for?
Very much depends on the role, Declan. We have 15 different operating units within our business. And, within each of those, you have a huge array of skills, from general operatives to engineers, all the way up through the support functions as well. So it very much depends. But in all fairness, the basics that you look for in any employee that's coming into you is, somebody who's willing to put the effort in. And very important as well is somebody who's able to get on with people, somebody who's able to operate as part of a team. And that doesn't matter what role you're doing. That's a key requirement that you have. You can have all the qualifications in the world, but if you're not able to communicate with people, you're not going to succeed, because everything is about working with the team. But in terms of the roles that we have, for example, in the organization, we have people who come in as apprentices, we have people who come in as general operatives. And there's opportunities there we have a sort of a structured program called Mannock Futures. So there's an opportunity for them then to develop their skills if they wish. Some people don't want to, they're just happy enough doing what they're doing. But for somebody who has the ambition to develop their skills, we have a program there for them. So apprentices, for example, can come in, they'll do an MVQ. And then they can move on from that. They can do a basic degree, basic diploma, and on into an advanced diploma. And then we have other roles. For example, if we are looking for, qualified engineer or qualified accountant or whatever it might be, we can bring people in straight out of college and put them onto what we call our graduate program. And then they can move from the stage of having their degree in engineering or finance or whatever it might be, to become a qualified accountant or a certified engineer, chartered engineer. And those opportunities are open to people at any stage in their career development within Mannock. So look, it very much depends on what the role is. Certainly there's some roles that if you're looking for somebody for them, you need a specific skill set and you need a specific qualification. But I suppose our view as an organization is we very much prefer to grow people from within the organization. So if somebody comes in as an apprentice or as a graduate, but they're showing an ambition, we'll work with them. We'll get them any additional qualifications that they want to progress to that are beneficial to the business, and let them develop their career. And as I say, better off if we can develop those people from within. And great, if they're from the local community, they tend to, in the long term, probably work out better than people who are coming a distance, in all honesty.
I think from that, Dara, would be fair to take that apprenticeships are hugely important to Mannock.
Very important. It's back to the points that the likes of Martin and Frankie have made there earlier. Very, very difficult, in all fairness, to get some skills, particularly around mechanical and electrical engineers and those type of skills. So we try to develop those internally. We've actually introduced in the last couple of years an advanced course to multi-skill our mechanical engineers to have electrical skills and vice versa, our electrical engineers to have mechanical skills. And that goes for our fitters as well. And then within the organization on the factory floor, we have a skills development program where individuals can just upskill in whatever function they're doing. So that's, for example, as basic as they come in, they're able to operate on one machine, and then they upskill so that they're able to do a number of different tasks on different machines. But at all stages throughout that, and regardless of what the skill set or the qualifications of the person is, what we do is we align them with a mentor. So when an apprentice comes in, he's aligned with a mentor, and that mentor keeps track of him as he's developing or her developing their career through the organization. Likewise, if you come in as a graduate, you're given a mentor and they bring you through. And you get a lot of hands-on experience. And I suppose just back to the point where we've got the 15 different operating units within the business, that allows us great opportunity to move people around between different units and get them an array of experience across the business. And then hopefully down the line, they'll find something that they say, yeah, this is the role for me. This is what I want to do. And back to what Damien mentioned earlier on, you can go in, you can do something and you can think, well, maybe this isn't quite for me, but I really do like what I see happening in that division or in that function. And if they put their hand up and show an interest in it, we'll give them the opportunity to develop within it.
Excellent. Dara, thank you. Very insightful. Damien, if I could just turn to you, and I suppose from Breffney's Electrical's perspective, when someone would come to you looking for a start or for a job, what are sort of the qualifications? What do you look for in somebody that's coming to work with you?
Yeah, well, I suppose what I look for, Declan, might be slightly different. What Solus requirements would be minimum of junior cert grade. So I have a couple of guys that have junior cert grade and no leaving cert. However, I do talk to them guys. A few of them guys sat down with the principals of the schools and their parents, and I'd strongly advise that you have a minimum of the leaving cert to give yourself the strongest base you can have, because electrical of all apprenticeships, it's tough to get through the college elements of it. There's a strong science and maths background, and so I feel the better launch pad you give yourself in secondary school for that, the better. There's also, what I would say, 3 other attributing factors that could come into play if you only have a junior cert qualification. That 12 months down the line, the apprentice themselves could decide, this isn't for me, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. There's a perception maybe of especially electrical that, it's clean and tidy and you're at wires, which there is an element of that, but you know what, if a wire has to get from A to B, you have to move everything in between to get there, and that's not what some people consider electrical work, but it's part and parcel of it. So 12 years or 12 months down the line, if they decide this isn't what I thought it was, where do you go then? If you only have a junior cert, I know there is options, but you're better. You have more options if you have the leaving cert. In the same token, 12 months down the line, I could decide that the electrical isn't for them. And I have an onus not to waste anyone's time. What we're trying to do here now in Breffney is create a path of communication between myself and apprentices, that if it's only bring them in for a small review every 6 months, just to see how they feel they're getting on, how I feel they're getting on, and just to make sure that we're both on the same hymn sheet. So that's another barrier that can come up. I might feel, that the person themselves is wasting their time, and I'm not going to do that, even though we all need manpower at the minute, but I wouldn't waste anyone's. That's their future. Apprenticeship is someone's future. It's not just time that can be wasted. It's a career path, and that's the big thing. And then the last thing is what I touched on, is that you could bring them in. They could love what they do. They're really good with their hands, but they can really, really struggle with the college element of it. And there is a huge drop off between phase 4 and 6 because it's IT based. So it's 10 weeks and it's 90% book work, 10% with your hands. So, that's equally as important. You can be great with your hands, but you need that piece of paper at the end of the day, And finally, I suppose what I would look for is over anything maybe is honesty. And that's, in my eyes, why I like to take on people with GAA backgrounds that that they're part of a team, and usually honesty is instilled in them, because I pick honesty over ability any day, because when you get to a certain size, you're sending lads here, there, and everywhere, and you can't micromanage. You're hoping that if you're sending 6 guys to a job, you're dependent on them, to be honest, to get the job over the line. So I pick that any day, the honesty, and I will get them through. I could work with somebody who's honest, who might say, look, I know I'm going to struggle with the college end, but you can set them up prior to heading to college. Like we all went through it. The qualified guys in the company went through it. We all have notes. We can prepare guys like that. So it's honesty I would look for first and foremost, and then we can work with them from there.
Damien, thank you. And again, I suppose what has to be encouraging for any parents that are out there is to hear that the beliefs that you have and the importance of how you develop your apprentices and manage them and assist them in their career path in pointing out what might be the inevitable, whether something suits or not. And also, I suppose, the sound advice that, at least get to your leaving cert, because that's essential to give you a fighting chance, as it were, in moving forward through your apprenticeship. So thanks again, Damien. Oh. Frankie, I'd like to turn to you now. Obviously, Lawrence Mechanical Services, when you look at your team of employees, what are the qualifications that most of your employees, the highest percentage perhaps, would be coming into you with?
Well, Declan, thanks. I just wanted to say for me, it's basically the same as Damien and Martin, and even to Dara to that extent. We're kind of in the one industry. Like, there's probably not one man within any of our companies here that couldn't go through the 4 companies and get a job on it, I'd like to say, just back up Damien there, what he said there is very important, that if somebody does choose the road down the mechanical route, it's very important as the employer that you do point them in the direction and say, listen, we don't believe this is for you, but from speaking to your supervisors or your foreman or that maybe you might be a better electrical minded, you might be better carpentry minded, you might be something in that line. That's very important, that you don't put them on a pathway for 2 or 3 years knowing that they're not going to succeed at the end of it. Now, it's very important that employers do that, I believe. The other thing is, if you come to Lawrence Mechanical Services, you can see that we're plumbing and heating contractors. We're not just plumbing and heating contractors, we're industrial plumbing and heaters. We can do air conditioning, engineering, commissioning, there's different aspects and different road, fire protections, there's different lines. You could be a coded welder, you could be a pipe fitter, you could be a plumber, you can be an air conditioning engineer, you can be a service engineer. There's loads of different routes within the company that you can take. Again, the same as Damien there, we take them on, we'd advise minimum the leaving cert as well, because there is a wee bit of work that has to be done on that end. You go through the 7 phases of FOSS, which is on site in school, on site on school, vice versa, over and back and that. And the person themselves will know how they are getting on. And we will know, because within our company here, we switch them around from different men to men, and we inquire how they're getting on and if they're good, if they're bad, or what way. And we'll put them in a direction that we feel is the right one for them, and if they want to go on it. Again, as the boy said, honesty. You have to work. You have to be honest. You have to work as a team, which is team player is very, very important in our game, because one man is backing up the other, whether you like it or not. That's the way the system operates. So, as Damien, as Martin there or Dara said, you can come in at any stage into the company here. We'd put you on and run whatever division you'd like to go down. We'd let you go there. It could be 6 months at it till we find out that maybe you're not just suited that side. You could go to the other side of the company and you could take a step there, and that could be it, So, as I said it in one of the earlier sections we were talking about, if that road for you comes to an end and blocks, don't be afraid or annoyed that you have to come back out it and go a different division. Like, if somebody wasn't suited in my game, yes, they might want to go out to kite, they might want to turn and go to an electrician, or maybe they want to go down and get a job down in Mannock. And someone likewise in Mannock might want to be in the same position or project the whole time. They might want to go to work with me because they can travel to different sites and travel to different parts of the country and that. But no more than any of the rest of the boys here have said, come in here, you start your job, you work your way through it, and if you're successful and work hard, you will achieve. You will achieve.
Yeah, thank you, Frankie. And I think if there's one thing to take from that particular segment of tonight's presentation, it's that the opportunities are there. for everybody from leaving cert level up with local companies, and the career path and the possibilities for development in the future are very, very strong locally. Guys, I want to move on to have a chat about job opportunities presently. And I'm going to start with you, Dara, and I suppose just to ask about what roles specifically would Mannock be possibly recruiting for now at this moment in time?
Yeah, I suppose it's around this time of year, Declan, every year that we look towards our apprenticeship scheme for the following year. So we're looking at people who are considering doing their leaving cert this year, and what are they going to pursue as a career. So that's what we would be targeting at this point in time. As always, I suppose, with a business that's developing and what have you, we do always have a need for electrical and mechanical skills on the engineering side. But in addition to that, there's also the whole support structure as well. So, we've got accountants, we've got a HR function, we have IT skills, etc., that we need on a constant basis. And then I suppose on the other side, you have operators, you have quarry operators, factory operatives, truck drivers. So, there's always a need for those type of skills. And even, I would say, regardless of even if you see an advertisement or you don't see an advertisement in the local paper or whatever it might be, there's certainly no harm in sending your CV in and expressing an interest in whatever role might be of interest to you, because something will arise, and if your name's in the pot for that and you have the necessary skill set for it, then you're going to be considered for that position. I suppose in addition to that, and just for other people who are considering what course or what career to follow, we have a number of link-ups with some third-level institutions, on particular degrees or diplomas. For example, we have a polymer engineer degree that we work with at Lone IT on, and that involves an element of on-site work on the factory floor, and then an element of college as well. So we have a number of places within that will be coming up now in September time. So that's something to keep an eye out for if that's a field that somebody's interested in. But look, as I say, regardless of whether there's a big advertisement in the paper saying, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, we're always on the lookout for good people. And as I say, particularly in that, and we're all going to be fighting over this now, particularly around that mechanical and electrical side of things at the moment. We're all looking for those kind of people. There's certainly a skills shortage for those in the country at the moment.
Good, and in particular, it's quite localized here, as I can see from the discussion that we're having here as well. Dara, thank you very much. Frankie, if I could come back to you, and I see that Lawrence Mechanical Services are recruiting for air conditioning engineers and apprentices at the moment. Tell me just a little bit more about those opportunities. I know you touched lightly on certain areas already.
Well, Declan, basically, for ourselves here now, like, we will always advertise, and for apprentices, obviously, we need them. We need air conditioning engineers, welders, pipe fitter, plumbers, everything like that, Like, as I say, or even that Dara said, or even if there isn't an advertisement in the paper, don't be afraid to put your CV in anywhere, because you'll fit the bill. You will always fit the bill somewhere, in my eyes. But opportunities in Lawrence Mechanical, yes. If you feel you want to come down this line or in the mechanical industry, by all means, put in your CV. We will look at it. And even if you're not fully qualified in the role you want to go, like, we will assist you through. There's different kind of courses you can do, evening courses and stuff like that. That Lawrence Mechanical will assist you in the financial side of all that to get you trained up to be qualified in that particular field, So I would hope that maybe Martin there and Kite can get more robots, and we can get a few of his men if he wouldn't mind passing them off.
Frankie, is there any areas that you're particularly finding difficult to fill jobs in at the moment? Okay, any specific?
Niche in the market there when the recession hit in 2008. It probably took 10 years of mechanical, electrical operatives and that out of the market. So we're only filling that gap back there now, but there is always room for more men, always. And as Damien and there, even Martin and Dara will tell you, if you're a good enough general operative, a good enough plumber, a good enough electrical man, or whatever it may be, any company will take you on if you're honest and hardworking.
Martin, just to talk to you about, I suppose, the specific vacancies that might be in Kite at this moment in time, also varying areas, etc.
Well, the most recent ones, Declan, you've probably seen, is that we're trying to recruit some postgraduates, 2-year program. One is on robotics, one is on lean manufacturing, and the other one is on R&D. So it's with all the new products that we're developing for electrical vehicle charging, battery storage, solar, and so on. It's having the expertise of moving it from a research and development program into a full phase full-on manufacturing process, with ironing out all the hiccups in between. So that's where our immediate requirements are. Similar to what the guys have said, like we cover such a wide range, I said, in the supply chain, from procurement, finance, HR, R&D, health and safety, environmental, to general operatives, supervision, welders. It's such a wide range. And again, same thing. We love to see CVs coming in, but we have seen them drying up more recently for the type of skills that we are all looking for. We're all looking in the same area, and I would agree. I would concur with what Frankie said earlier, that when the recession hit on the buildings and stuff, there was I think every parent in the country must said, right, you're not doing any skills anymore. You're going straight to college, because there's such a shortage on hands-on skills in mechanical and electrical in the country. It's unbelievable to see it in such a. But and we're all in the same area, same region, looking for the same skill set, which doesn't help either. So it's just the way it is, and it is. Frankie said it's starting to come through. You can see the people starting to come through, and the big thing we'd like to see is people realizing that Cavan is a place to work. It is a place to live. It is a buzzing town. I know I'm biased because I've never really left it that much. So it's a good town. Like I've seen other towns that around surrounding counties I would have always called them as a commuter towns. People that live there that commuted somewhere else. Cavan, it still has that sense of community where we're all in it. We're all still here. Like, as I said, I wouldn't know Damien that well, only from his football and exploits, but I'd know Dara and Frankie very well over the years, and see such familiar faces still operating, working, living, bringing their families up in the area. It's great to see. And I would encourage anyone, even if they go to college, to maybe look nearer home for employment before they start, looking for the bright lights in the city and the cost of living up there compared to here and everything else, and the quality of life. I suppose, myself, as I said, the guys, we're all probably 10, 15 minutes from our jobs. I don't know anyone in Dublin can tell me that. The only reason it takes me 10 minutes to get to my job is I'm the other side. I'm in speed limit of the town the whole way. I'm 50 kilometers an hour from this side of town to the other side of town. And gridlock is maybe the turn of tractor motors there. 2 cars get stuck on the turn, but that's as busy as it gets. So it's a nice place to live. That's just, I like it here, and I know we're talking about the opportunities, and I think people, when they're applying, looking for jobs, even coming out of college in Dublin, they should look maybe nearer to home, and back to the communities that they grew up in, because the opportunities are here.
Thank you, Martin. And I think, in fairness, you've probably segued me directly into another section completely, which is fine. It's an excellent segue. And I suppose the point I was going to move on with was that tonight you're all leaders in your industries, and you're based here in Cavan. So, gentlemen, tell us, why is Cavan a good place to do business and build your career? Obviously, Martin, you've given your play on it at the moment, and very sound reasoning. So I'm just going to go to Dara at this stage and to ask Dara, what are the advantages of living in Cavan for your employees?
Yeah, I'd reiterate a lot of what Martin's after saying there. it is a lovely place to live. It's a great place to bring up a family. You get a great sense of community. I live just around the corner from my local GAA club. I know I've moved from Belturbet, Damien. Unfortunately, Butler's Bridge was as close as I could get my wife to Belturbet, so be it. But you can get involved in all of those kind of things. And as Martin says, I have a less than 15-minute commute to work. It's a busy morning if you have to pass something out. And for somebody who has lived and worked in Dublin for a period of time, I certainly wouldn't go back. Definitely not. The amount of time that you have, extra time that you have in your life, working and living in Cavan. And indeed, even within the work community, so many people in your own organisation and outside of your organisation, as this call has, said on numerous occasions. So yeah, it's quality of life. It's probably cheaper to live in Cavan than it is in Dublin, and most certainly is. But I'd put quality of life ahead of that, and in particular, quality of life in bringing up kids in a rural environment. I think there's a lot to be said for it. But look, that doesn't mean that you're restricted in terms of what you're capable of, or the opportunities that are available to you. Like all of us, for example, we all work away. COVID obviously is different now at the moment, but we all travel because of our work, some of us more than others. So you do get to see different places and experience different things through your work and all of that. And, in our organisation in Mannock, over 50% of our product goes across the water to GB on a daily basis. So, it doesn't mean that just because a business is located in Cavan or Fermanagh or Leitrim or Monaghan or wherever it may be, that doesn't mean that it's a smaller business or has no less impact on an international stage. All of us on this call do business overseas, outside of Ireland. And I think that's great to be able to show the Cavan businesses and people working and making a living in Cavan and contributing back to the society and the community in Cavan are able to extend their skills and their reach into those international markets.
Dara, just a follow on, I suppose, on the basis that we've identified that with the size of Mannock and the amount of different areas, there's bound to be time to time that you will have to essentially headhunt or spot somebody that you want that may not be available locally, that you need for a particular role or a position. Have you ever identified any issues in actually attracting employees to come to Cavan?
It's not the easiest thing in the world to do for somebody who probably doesn't have a connection with the area. It's, in our experience, we've always found it easier to attract somebody back to the area who has a connection with it than for example, and this is no disrespect to people, but somebody who's been brought up in Dublin all their life and trying to move them to Cavan. That can be difficult and can be challenging. So certainly, if we have an opportunity to attract somebody back who has a link with the area, that tends to work better in the longer term. But look, in saying that, we've a number of employees who've come to us for different specific roles, like you've mentioned, Declan, and have actually enjoyed their time when they've come, and some of them have settled in the area. Some of them from overseas coming in and just got involved in different projects within the business, constructing of new factories or whatever it might be. And at the end of maybe a 2-year program, have decided that they quite like it here and, have settled down and got a job with our business or with another business in the area. So it's certainly not something that doesn't happen. But I suppose there's probably a preference if you have a connection to the area. It tends to work out better more times than not.
Thank you, Dara. Damien, again, just on a similar wavelength to that, and obviously as like a lot of our other contributors, as a man with a young family, I suppose what does living and working in Cavan have to offer if you were trying to persuade somebody to come, in your opinion?
Yeah, so look at the working in Cavan for me is, it's been part of the companies like Kite and Mannock and Lawrence there. As I said earlier on, we do a huge part of our company's maintenance. So a good portion of our work is maintained in these places and working locally. But, I'm not going to dress it up like definitely there's a good portion of work is also in Dublin. And you'd only have to be at, as Martin said, you'd only have to be at that roundabout at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning to see the volume of traffic that goes to Dublin every day. And that is the reality. But you know what, we're privileged, as I said earlier on, that's achievable. It's very achievable to hit Dublin from Cavan with our good roads. And we're close, like in comparison to, if you go over to the west, you cannot hit Dublin like we can every day. And there's a huge bubble of work in Dublin. So, I feel privileged that we can make that every day. And, we can provide transportation, vans and costs that apprentices don't have to worry about to go to Dublin. So, and I think that's an important point, that getting these logistical, challenges, the cost then removed from an apprentice is important, because I think for lads, it's important to educate them that what you might be getting into your hand at the end of the week might necessarily be all yours. So there is possibly a premium for, working in Dublin. But if you're living in Dublin, the cost of rent, we're all aware of that. The cost of your loaf of bread in Dublin is dearer than it is in Cavan. The cost of everything every time you put your hand in your pocket in Dublin, it will be dearer than it will be in Cavan every day. So, and if you're trying to run your own car up and down, wear and tear, it's important that people understand what you get in hand at the end of the week might necessarily be yours. So, that's one thing I'd just like to get out there, that, we do have a portion of work in Cavan is great, and the more the better. But we do go to Dublin. But the fact that you're based in Cavan and you're commuting and you're able to commute it is hugely cost saving.
Yeah, Damien, thank you. And Frankie, just to move on to you at this point, just to get about your experiences of doing business in Cavan. Okay, I'm in Cavan based.
Listen, it's great, and I would love every project to be at Tractor Motors there. That was only 5 minutes away, but as the boy says, you can't choose where your work is. Unfortunately, we have to travel to Dublin and Athlone, Dundalk, anywhere that's in, as I said earlier, an achievable distance, But saying that, another section of the business is maintenance, and we go to Mannock and Kite. We do work in all these buildings. So it's very important that local people and that, if they can, keep employing local people, because that will be a big saviour in getting people to work for you. That knowing that maybe the work is down the road or it is close, and especially for players within the GAA, or maybe players that maybe have a small background with farming or something like that at home, that the advantage to them of working with Lawrence Mechanical or Mannock or with Damien there or Kite or that is that they're home in the evenings. They're home maybe at an achievable time to do their training and that. They're about at the weekends. Your club is benefiting, your county is benefiting. We're retaining our own stock, if you want to class it as, So I think it's very important that we stick together in these counties, Cavan, Monaghan, Fermanagh, Longford, all neighbouring counties if we can. We look after each other if we can. And that, in the long term for us, will improve club football, county football and everything.
Brilliant, Frankie, thank you. And guys, we're moving towards the end of this, but of course we need to touch on the theme of this series has been the skills that GAA players develop, and that they are transferable into the workplace. So I think it would be remiss of it not to start with Damien as a former vice captain of our county team. What skills from your playing days, Damien, would you say that you found useful, that you've brought across into the workplace?
Yeah, I suppose probably if I had to pick one, Declan, it would be communication. As you touched on there, I was the role of vice captain, so I was lucky with the Panda players at the time. It definitely wasn't, football ability, that got me there. It was probably communication, So I felt that obviously there was a small level of motivation on the field and communication on the field, but even more so, it was the communication off the field. Maybe sitting down beside a fella at the bus and just having a chat with him to see how was his work circumstances, college circumstances, or lifting the phone at the weekend. Just trying to get chatting to everybody. I always felt that, if I lifted the phone and talked to a fella, with a panel of 40 players, you can find yourself in, close knit with half a dozen, and you can't get talking to everyone. You only meet a couple of times a week and train. So I could lift the phone and chat to a fella for 5 minutes, and I always felt when I got off the phone, I knew at least one more thing about that fella that I did before I lifted the phone. Even if it was only small, it was something I could take away from the conversation, and if it was something that I could help with directly, that's what I do. And if it was something that I felt had to be related to management, that's what I do as well. And, you know, we worked on it that way. So that skill, I've tried to bring that into running my own business and create a two-way path, you know, a path of communication between myself and employees. And I think that's so important. And I might have touched on it earlier, but it's good that, you know, maybe an apprentice feels that I'm on this site too long, I'm doing the same thing, I don't feel I'm learning, you know, and they could feel that, and I could feel, no, I don't think so. I think you really get into the basics, or we could say, well, yeah, we'll move you to another site, a residential section, industrial section. But it's just important that maybe sometimes apprentices know that it's a process. Stick with it. Apprenticeship is 3 or 4 years. You're not going to learn everything in the first year, but I do find you have that with footballers and players. They have that ability to stick at something and work at it. They're not going to walk away from it in 2 years. So, but back to the skill set, Declan, it would be communication, and that's why I try to bring in the Breffni Electrical, is that I'm always on the other side of the phone. I'm always here, and as I mentioned, we do kind of, you know, meetings every 6 months, just reviews, a small chat, just to see how lads are getting on and how they feel they're getting on, and that'd be a big part of it for me, Declan. And I feel that I developed that through my time with Cavan and playing football in general.
Ian, thank you. That's brilliant. And Martin, I'd just like to turn to you now and obviously and follow on to ask you, how do you think the GAA and Cavan can work with your company to bring the varying opportunities that you've outlined to the attention of its players? What do we need to do better?
Which I said, maybe we should be doing this sort of thing a bit more often, you know, and not when things are tight, or, you know, like, I think the opportunity now is the right time because we're doing it before everything starts up again. So people know when it starts up that we can stay where we are or within our county as much as possible. Get that message out there. There is ambitious people in Cavan, from Cavan, well educated, well schooled, that are willing to talk and talk to other people that maybe want to go on the path of starting a new business, you know, maybe come in as a support function to one of our companies or something like that. You know, get the message out there, you know.
Okay, Martin, thank you. Really appreciate the contribution on that. Frankie, I'm going to move to you next. Obviously, look, I know personally that you're a huge supporter of the GAA in general, huge supporter of all things in the county, and to the core with your own club, your beloved Killygarry, and I know that you're never out of the place, in fairness to you. But what is the advantages that you would see that an initiative like this pathway idea that GAA is supporting? What are the advantages of the development of the career pathways for players? What do you see this initiative? Do you see this initiative as being something that's positive? Give us your thoughts.
Well, yes, Declan, I do. And if you listen to all the pathways that have happened, they all relate back basically to business and Cavan and the GAA, basically what we're all here for nearly as well, right? To put the people in the right position for it. Like, to benefit, to get employment in Cavan, to stay working in Cavan, maybe get on the property ladder. It is a wee bit cheaper maybe than starting to go up and try and purchase an apartment or something in Dublin. As Damien said earlier, the living in Dublin is more expensive than it is in Cavan. So, number one, if you can get employment within a Cavan company, within somewhere around the region of us, you can maybe purchase your own property in Cavan, maybe get, you like all of our companies here will be assuring you, guaranteeing your work, will be giving you guarantee letters that you'll be in employment for many years you need to give it or whatever, you know. It's good for the clubs. We're going to retain our players, as I said earlier. If we can retain our players within Cavan and keep them within the Cavan, it'll benefit our clubs, our county, our whole society in general. So the money will be spent back in Cavan, whether it be in a pub, a restaurant, purchasing a car, purchasing a house where they get 10-15% commission on the sales of them houses. So I think it's very important that we keep the players in Cavan if we can. We entice them to stay in Cavan, give them whatever helping hand we can.
Brilliant, Frankie. Thank you. And I'm not sure when you last employed for the services of an auctioneer, but at the rates you pay, you'll never have any problem getting anyone to help you. Guys, or Dara, what I just want to ask you, and I think it would be wrong not to touch on the fact that you, I know, work very, very closely with Mannock, with St Aidan's High School in Derrylin on the Business Insights partnership. Okay, would you expand a little bit about the importance of building links with schools?
Yeah, I suppose St. Aidan's is one of the partnerships that we have at the minute. We also have partnerships with a couple of other schools as well. And that's very much, I suppose, just to get out there at a very early stage in any potential future employee or certainly student or footballer or whatever it might be, to get it into their mind that there are opportunities, in our case with Mannock, in the local area, so that when they're choosing their career path, they know at that stage that there are opportunities for them locally. So it's very much along the lines of the player pathway initiative that Cavan GAA have launched. It's the same thing. It's communicating and getting it out there that there's good opportunities if people want them local to them at home. We also have relationships with a number of third level colleges as well, both in Northern Ireland and in the Republic of Ireland. I mentioned before about the relationship with Athlone IT on the polymer side of things. We also have a course with Sligo IT on lean manufacturing as well. And we have a number of employees already gone through that and a number more at it at the moment. And we're also in the final stages of finalising another arrangement with a couple of other colleges in Southern Ireland. Can't name names at the moment, but that's around the whole sustainability side of things. And in particular, that is an initiative looking at hydrogen power for the future potential power of our fleet and our mobile plant. So it's very important, I think, just to have those relationships and specifically to our organization so that we can tailor the outcomes from those courses that we run with them and those partnerships to suit us. But certainly the one with St. Aidan's and the other secondary schools that we run, it's more about information. It's about giving people the knowledge that there are opportunities out there. It also goes a little bit deeper than that, in that we bring in some of those second level students. We bring them in for work placements, and they can get a hands-on feel for various different roles within the organization. So if somebody is showing an initiative for IT, for example, and that's a course that field that they want to go down, we'll give them some experience in that for a number of weeks. Likewise, if somebody's interested in production technology or whatever it might be, we'll put them into a production environment so that they can actually see hands-on how their potential role in the future might look and where it might end up.
Thank you, Dara. Gentlemen, we're almost at a cusp. We're at a cusp, I should say. We're almost around about to finish up here. So before we do, I'm just going to ask you, and if you could be as concise and if it's possible in a one line or one sentence, what words of advice would each of you have, okay, for any GAA player that's thinking about moving back to Cavan, who has been working away overseas or in another part of the country, or to a young Leaving Cert student watching this broadcast at the moment? And you can pick either or both. And what I'll do is I'll start with Martin, maybe on that.
Easy one to start with. I would say opportunity. Opportunity. There's definitely opportunities for people. When you see the people on this call and the pathway videos we've watched so far, there's great opportunities in Cavan.
Brilliant. And Frankie, if I could go to you next.
Yeah, thanks, Declan. I would just like to say, listen, similar to Martin, if you can get back to base, like Cavan is where your heart is and Cavan is where your home is. I know people like to set up shop maybe somewhere else than that, but as I said earlier, if we can retain the people in Cavan, we have enough employment, not just in the businesses that's advised here, but if you go into any small town in Cavan, Ballyjimstuff, Ballyconnell, the employment in these towns is serious. So if you can at all, get back home.
Brilliant. And Damien?
Yes, Declan. I think that trend is already in full swing. There's so many people I know, all walks of life, that they are trying to get back to Cavan and they've been in Dublin for years. And I think that trend speaks volumes because that's people that has done it. They've been in college for 4 years. They've worked in Dublin for 5 and 6 years and they want to get back. And the reasons, that they're obviously there and they're obviously feasible. So that trend is in full swing. People are moving back to home and where they came from, and Cavan especially. People are choosing Cavan. So I think that's testament to it's a good enough reason as to why you should do it. And just on the point of the Leaving Cert students, I suppose, Declan, just be the only advice I would have is that if you find yourself in the Leaving Cert curriculum at the minute and you're not 100% sure where you want to go, don't panic. I think everyone here, bar maybe Dara, we're 100% sure where they want to go, and look, it works out. But if you're willing to work at it and you want to achieve, I wouldn't panic at this stage just because there's no course jumping out it yet. So we know the options here now as well.
Damien, thank you. And obviously, as we go around, Dara, I'd love you to answer that as well, please.
Yeah, I think anybody who's thinking about moving back to Cavan, I just say to them, look, go and do it. The opportunities are here. I don't think you'll regret it. It's the quality of life is fantastic. And as I say, the opportunities are there. You just have to go looking for them.
Dara, thanks a million for that, and to everybody for their contributions. And that brings us to an end. So what I need to do at this point is to obviously thank our 4 guests here this evening, to Dara Riley from Mannock, to Frankie Lovett from Lawrence Mechanical Services, to Martin Riley, of course, from Kite, and to Damien Riley from Breffni Electrical. A huge thank you for giving up of your time. Tonight's broadcast is the final one in the series, for the moment anyway, and we hope that you've enjoyed them. Don't forget that all the episodes are still available on the Cavan GAA YouTube channel. I'd like to thank all the guests and the presenters over the past 5 weeks, and the Pathways Committee responsible for this initiative. To Enda Gallen, Enda O'Reilly, Shawnee Johnson, Fergal Flanagan, Shannon McKernan, and Catherine Fox for their work on the initiative, and of course Rob Kelly for his technical help. They'll be launching more information on their plans in the coming months. So on behalf of Cavan GAA and the Player Pathway Committee, thank you for tuning in.